Okay, in the Atari emulator, you can save configurations by changing different things here on each of these categories. And at the end, you can go ahead and save it. You can change the CPU, for example, or the memory or whatever. And you just say Save Config. And you can see here, if you scroll down, there's a bunch of ones I have already done. And on the STeam emulator, it's the settings on the side. In the settings module, you can come in here and have any one of these configurations. You just change the setting for that particular item. And once you're done, you can go back down to the configurations and save them there, and then load them later on. Now, normally when configuring either Hatari or STeam, there's only a few things you have to worry about as far as the configuration. I include storage because I have a different configuration for each type of program that I run. As a matter of fact, you'll see a link up above that shows you how to configure your system for each type of program you're going to run, eliminating the need for boot managers. So you see here how I have a different directory storing those particular types of games in those directories. And when I boot, it boots the configuration that accesses the storage system that I need. So in this case, you'll see that under the Apps High, you'll see those programs that require the high resolution monitor. Or in this case, the low resolution configuration that has all the paint programs in it. And that leads us to shortcuts, whereas each one of these shortcuts represents one of those configurations. And we're going to take a look at both STeam and Atari to see how you can store those configurations and call them from a desktop icon. So as you can see here, I clicked on Games Low for the Atari. It brought up my Atari window, and pretty soon here, it'll go ahead and boot to low resolution. I click on another one, and you'll see it comes up in another resolution. And the same thing goes for the third. All just by clicking on an icon, a different instance of Atari will show with the proper resolution. And the same thing can be done with STeam. As a matter of fact, we're going to go through it right here. We're going to create different shortcuts for different resolutions and launch them just with a click. Now, if we go look at the configuration files that you saw in the Atari emulator, they're just text files. And I have this one's configured to come up in Visual Studio Code. So when I click on it, it'll launch that editor. And if we look at the file structure, it's just a text file with some settings that it's set up to read those when it comes time to boot. And if we examine a little bit, it has 100 or so better settings, most of which you're not going to be worried about. But the things you are going to talk about is, what maybe the keyboard setup and stuff, but really about the hard drives and whether you boot with a floppy in place and where the image is located and that kind of thing. And in fact, here's that place where it tells it what drive to use, what file system where the C drive files are located at. And it's really no different for the STeam emulator. If I go here to the STeam, the current version I'm using right here, and I look here in the config directory, here's all the ones set up for different system setups. And here's the one for the same G+ that the Hatari uses. But it uses an INI file. I just have it set up to come up in a regular notepad. You can see all the different folders. There's the history there for one. Eventually we'll come down here and we'll see the hard drive. There it is there. The G+, same one that the Atari emulator was using. And it'll boot to that. Plus a D drive, which is supported in STeam. Now each emulator has a little different technique to create a shortcut to launch it. So we're going to close this down and get rid of all that stuff. But we're going to go over here to the actual emulator. And we're going to take a look here and say, here's the config file like we talked about. So somehow I have to pass that parameter to a shortcut. So how do we do that? Well, as with most shortcuts, you right click and you get the properties, and there's the information we need to create a shortcut. And we have to pass a parameter to it. How do we know that that's how to pass the parameter? Well, there's a nice page on the Hatari website that gives us all the documentation for that. So we go off and visit it, and we go to the over here where it says documentation, of all things. And we're going to go into the information here, and we just go down to where we find out where the actual configuration is at. And there's a lot of information here that most of it you don't have to worry about. But eventually you'll get down to a section that talks about the parameters that can be passed, and there they are. So if we examine it, you'll see right here, it tells you here's the parameter passing for the configuration file. And just right a little bit down here, there it is. So we're going to use this configuration inside of the shortcut that we just looked at. So back to the shortcut. Right-click any one of them, and we'll just go here. And now you'll see how I've constructed it with the same settings and the same configuration for that particular file. To launch a different version of the emulator, all you have to do is change which config file you're going to be running, and it'll read that one instead of the other one. And that's how you come up with all these different ones for the same emulator that launch in that different configuration for the one you want. So again, these are all the configuration files. You simply use those in the shortcut to create a different shortcut for different ones right here. Okay? Now, taking that one step farther, once you have all these, you can go ahead and make these, instead of on your desktop, you can add them to your start menu. You just keep clicking on each one and put them all in the start menu until you have the ones you want. Now, if we go look at the start menu, and we look, and where the hell are they at? Oh, there they all are. So I can rearrange these wherever I want and put all of them together. And once I have them on desktop, I can put them in a nice little group like this. I can simply drag them into a group so that they're together. You see here I have both the Hatari and the STeam there. I can actually just call them up just by clicking on this and selecting which one I want to launch. And by the way, you can do this on Windows 11 as well. You can create these by putting them on the start menu the same way you did for Windows 10, simply by saying pin to start. And do that for a couple of them here. You go to your start menu over here, and you see them there. And you can actually create groups here as well. Just drag them together, and then they up as a group in Windows 11 as well. And if I click up here, I can name the group, just like in Windows 10. And there I have a group with those. I click over here, and there it is. And of course, I can do that with the Hatari emulator as well. I can just put those into the pin to start and come over here, and there's one there. And then I just do each one of those and create another group for them. And let me get them over there and pin them to start, find the start. There's those two. You can grab those and drop them one at a time onto there and create my Hatari group. Boom. And once I'm done, I can clean up my desktop with these messy shortcuts and just simply highlight them all and get rid of them. And now they're all on my menu here. So there you have it on Windows 10 or Windows 11, how you can launch different resolutions, different configurations directly from a shortcut either on your desktop or in your start menu. So it's quickly and easily launch the version that you want. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want more, you can just click on subscribe. You can also follow me on Facebook or Twitter. The links are in the description of the video.